Very good morning, dear students. I hope you are all well.
Morning, sir.
Yes, good morning, Inamul and everybody. Today we are going to start a new unit. Yesterday we have finished off with respiration, both aerobic and anaerobic respiration we have covered, isn't it? So today we are going to start with a related unit, and that is called chemolithotrophy. Although this unit, as per your syllabus, this is put at the last, okay? But I have planned that I should take it in conjunction with the earlier units. That is because there are a lot of things that are related here. Okay, the three units: photosynthesis, respiration, and chemolithotrophy. They are in a way related to each other. Okay, I think Shamim wants to enter the class. I'll admit him. Okay, so let us begin with this unit. Before that, I'll just like to highlight that what I have written here on the slide. When we talk about chemolithotrophy, we are actually talking about the electron donor, okay, as well as electron acceptor. But here, electron donor is an important component, which is here essentially an inorganic molecule, okay, inorganic compound, right? If it was an organic molecule, then we would have called it chemoheterotrophy, isn't it? Do you all agree or no? I think in one of the lectures we had dealt with this point. Okay, the electron acceptor in case of chemolithotrophic organisms could be either oxygen or it could be any other molecule other than oxygen. So depending on whether it is oxygen which is playing the role of electron acceptor, we would call that organism as aerobic organism. Okay, and if instead of oxygen some other molecule is acting as the electron acceptor, terminal electron acceptor that is, okay, then we would call that organism as anaerobic organism. So this kind of distinction we have already seen when we saw respiration, both aerobic and anaerobic. Okay, but now what is important is on the left hand side of the chain, okay, we have the electron donor. So just remember that the left hand side of this particular chain of electron carriers is an inorganic molecule. Remember that. Okay, the other end, that is the right hand side of the chain, could be either oxygen or it could be any other molecule, right? So if this fundamental aspect is clear to you, then we would go to the next slide. Okay, I think we have some definitions there. We will look at these definitions one by one. So autotrophy is where carbon dioxide is used as the sole source of carbon for assimilatory purpose. Okay, that is all the carbohydrates are built up, the cell biomass is built up using the carbon which comes from carbon dioxide. Okay, so these organisms are called as autotrophic organisms, right? Then this CO2 is actually reduced to glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. You have already seen all this in your semester 1. Okay, that process we call as CO2 fixation. Okay, and no organic nutrients are used as the source of carbon. Okay, that is very important. In the case of heterotrophic organisms, the carbon source is an organic molecule, right? Then the term photo, okay, photoautotrophic or photoheterotrophic. The word photo actually means that sunlight is used up, the energy from sunlight is used for respiration, okay, or it is used for photosynthesis, right? And when we use the term chemo, it means that these organisms cannot use sunlight, okay, for generating ATP and also for generation of the biomass, right? And the electron donor is inorganic or organic, okay? The organism could be aerobic or anaerobic, but essentially we should know that these are the organisms which do not use sunlight, right? Then we have the chemoautotrophs and chemoheterotrophs. So what we do is we just combine these autotrophic or heterotrophic, okay, with the chemo word chemo. right? So when it is a chemoautotrophic organism, the electron donor is inorganic or organic, but CO2 is the source of carbon for assimilation, right? So word chemo actually means either inorganic or organic. That is not specified. Okay. And then when we say it is a chemoheterotrophic organism, that the electron donor again is organic or inorganic, but carbon source is the organic molecule. It is a substrate molecule like succinate or fumarate or something. Okay. And then we call these organisms as chemoheterotrophic. And when we use the term chemolithotrophy or chemolithotrophic organisms, these are the organisms which essentially use inorganic compound as the electron donor. Okay. And if it is a chemoorganotrophic organism, then the electron donor is an organic molecule. Okay. I hope this is clear to everybody.
Yes, sir.
If you want to go through the slide, I will give you maybe 1 minute or so. You can just read this slide yourself. Try to understand what is the difference in all these terms, what are the similarities. Try to compare the terms. Okay, I'll keep quiet for some time. Okay, so I hope you have all gone through that slide. Okay, and we shall continue with the next one. So I have written this word here, chemoautolithotrophy. Okay, so what is the meaning of that? Can anybody suggest me what is chemoautolithotrophy? Now this is a combination of three words, chemo and auto and litho.
Electron donor is an organic molecule, and CO2 as a carbon source.
Yes, yes. Okay, so you are very right. Everybody has understood. As Aishwarya has rightly said, litho means that inorganic compound is used as the donor of electrons. That is the energy source. Okay, the source of carbon is CO2 because it is autotrophic. The word auto is there in this term. Okay, and chemo would actually mean the electron donor is either organic or inorganic, but the litho word is actually specifying that the electron donor is inorganic. Okay, so let us go to the next one. Again, I am repeating this. CO2 is the carbon source. The Calvin cycle or Calvin-Basham cycle is used for CO2 fixation. I think you have already studied this in your part one, semester one. Okay, the word litho means that the electron donor is inorganic. Okay, so inorganic would actually mean that the electron source could be either hydrogen molecule, it could be ammonia, it could be nitrite, it could be thiosulfate. Okay, so essentially the electron donor is a reduced molecule, something which is reduced. Okay, when I say reduced, it means that it has electrons. Okay, it has electrons and protons, so it is a reduced molecule. Okay, these organisms could be either aerobic or anaerobic. They could be anything. That is because the terminal electron acceptor could be either oxygen, or it could be any other molecule other than oxygen. Like in anaerobic respiration, we have already studied that nitrate and sulfate can serve as the electron acceptors. Okay, that is instead of oxygen, right? Okay. The problem here is this, that if we have an electron donor which is not water as such, okay, and electron acceptor could be oxygen or anything, but electron donor here is not water, okay, and then what happens is if it is anything else other than water, like we have seen in photosynthesis, the electron donor was water, isn't it? If that is not the case, then the problem is that the electrode potential, okay, that is the potential difference between the donor and the acceptor pair, that potential is lower. Okay, if you compare that with the standard pair, that is oxygen and water. Okay, water gives the electrons to oxygen. Okay, so if this pair, this standard pair is not there, then the amount of energy which is generated from this kind of the electron transport, that is lower, right? And okay, then the electrons which are coming from the electron donor, like we have seen in photosynthesis or respiration, the electrons will go into the respiratory chain, where we have different components which are electron acceptors or electron donors. Okay, so they take the electrons and give the electrons to the next component in the chain. Okay, so that similar kind of mechanism is present in the chemolithotrophic, chemoautolithotrophic organisms. Okay, but the disadvantage here, as I have already pointed out, that because the electrons are entering the respiratory chain at a level which is say cytochrome C, okay, they are not entering the level at the level of water molecule that we have already seen in the case of photosynthesis. Okay, the electrons are actually entering at the level of cytochrome C, and therefore the energy which is generated from this process is lesser. Okay, and because energy generated is lesser, it also means that the amount of ATPs, the number of ATPs that are generated in these organisms is much lesser. Okay. So this is just for your reference. I have written some donor acceptor couples here. Okay. So water here, water oxygen pair, that is water is the donor and oxygen is the acceptor. So the potential difference here is to the tune of plus 0.82. And then if we go to other pairs like nitrate and hydrogen. So hydrogen is the electron donor and nitrate is the electron acceptor. That is anaerobic respiration. Okay. And then the standard potential here is plus 0.4. So if we go down this particular list, okay, just go down the list and you will find that with the different pairs that are used as the donors and acceptors, for example, iron is the electron acceptor here, okay, that is ferrous ion is the acceptor, sulfite is the acceptor, or sulfur is the acceptor. Here CO2 itself is serving as the electron acceptor. Okay, so if we go down this particular chain, then the potential is going down, and therefore the amount of energy which will be obtained from these pairs, okay, that will be lesser and lesser, okay, as we go down this chain, right? Maximum amount of energy will be obtained with this particular pair. Is it right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then we come to this point, that is what is the source of reducing power in chemolithotrophy? Okay, we have already seen in the case of photosynthesis, we have seen plants, we have seen algae, we have seen the purple bacteria, green bacteria, and we have seen that NADH or NAD or NADP must be reduced. Okay, and when that is reduced, then we get the reducing power. So in the case of chemolithotrophy, how do we get the reducing power? Okay, organisms will require ATP, and organisms will also require reducing power. Why? Because they are going to use carbon dioxide as a carbon source, and this carbon must be assimilated in the different, you can say different molecules in the cell, isn't it? That is the biomolecules. Okay, and for that assimilatory purpose, the organisms do require energy in the form of ATP, and they also require the reducing power, NADH. Okay, so this reducing power can be obtained in two different ways. Okay, one way is they can obtain the reducing power directly from an inorganic compound. An inorganic compound can directly give the electrons, for example, hydrogen. Okay, we have already seen the list of different electron donors and acceptors. Okay, so the different inorganic donors of electrons, they can give the electrons reduced form of sulfur, reduced form of iron, okay, hydrogen. All these different molecules can give the electron, and that is to say they can provide for the reducing power. Okay, and if that is not possible, then sometimes the reverse electron transport, you have already seen in the case of purple bacteria. I think I had given you an assignment. Many students have given me the assignment. Okay, and I'm yet to actually go through the assignment and suggest you something about that, but that will take some little time. Okay, so by the process of reverse electron transport, if, for example, if the electron donor is more electropositive than NADH, okay, you can just remember that graph which I had told you. Okay, and as we go up the graph, that is the standard potential goes on increasing towards the positive side, and then we have seen that those compounds which are at the higher potential level, these molecules cannot give the electron. They can take the electron, but they cannot give the electron. Okay, so if a particular electron donor is above that, is placed at a upper level in that particular graph, okay, then we say that these molecules are more electropositive. Okay, and if they are more electropositive, then they cannot give the electron directly to NADH, because NADH will be placed at a little lower level. Okay, so from the top level, the electron cannot go to the lower level, and therefore there has to be what is called as the reverse electron flow. And with the reverse electron flow, that is to say there is the use of ATP. Okay, so ATP will be actually consumed in the process to drive the electron in a reverse manner. Okay, conventionally the electron would go from one component to the other component. Okay, thermodynamically that will be favorable when the particular donor is at a lower electrode potential. Okay, that is on the negative side. That molecule can give the electron. Okay, and that is an exergonic reaction that will not require any energy. In fact, it will produce energy in the form of ATP. Okay, but in order to generate the reducing power, if a particular electron donor is placed at a higher potential, then it cannot give the electron easily, and therefore in order to get the electron, ATP must be used up, ATP must be consumed to drive the electron in the reverse manner. Only then the electron can go from that particular donor to the acceptor molecule, or that is to the NAD molecule. Is it okay? So that is the major disadvantage of this particular process, you can say, chemolithotrophy. Okay, but if there is an electron donor available whose electrode potential is lower, then of course it can give the electrons directly. Okay, but if it is not the case, then reverse electron transfer will be required for chemolithotrophy. Is it okay? Right, so we go to the next slide. I hope you have understood this. Okay. Then we come to this point, that is the electron donors are negative, and if are inorganic, sorry, they are inorganic. And these electron donors are such that they can provide, usually they can provide sufficient energy for ATP synthesis. Okay, and that is especially when oxygen is the electron acceptor, then we can understand that maximum amount of energy can still be obtained. Okay, even if the electron donor is not a water molecule. Okay, if so long as the electron acceptor is oxygen molecule, then the chain will still be longer chain. Okay, and therefore the energy which will be obtained, or ATP that will be synthesized in the process, that will be sufficient. Okay, we have enough energy for synthesizing ATP. Okay, now these electron donors can come from different sources. They can come from anthropogenic sources, for example, agricultural activities. Okay, due to agricultural activities, when we apply fertilizers to the soil, okay, then certain reduced compounds are present. They are added to the soil. Okay, and these reduced compounds are the one which are going to provide the electrons for chemolithotrophic organisms. Okay, there could be certain biological reactions. Okay, and there also could be geological reactions like for example volcanic activity. Okay, because of volcanic activity certain minerals are made available, okay, to the microorganisms. The minerals which are present deep inside the earth, they come out on the surface, and therefore they become available to the microorganisms. Okay, now one of the important such compound is H2S, okay, hydrogen sulfide, which is a reduced form of sulfur. Okay, H2S is a highly reduced form of sulfur, and because it is a reduced form of sulfur, it will be able to give away electrons. Okay, now this H2S is also generated from volcanic activity. Then reduced nitrogen compounds or reduced iron compounds, that is ferrous salts, are made available from the agricultural activities. Okay, so just remember, again, I'm again repeating this again and again just because this is a very important thing that you should remember. Okay, the oxidized compounds serve as electron acceptors and reduced compounds serve as electron donors. Okay, H2S is a reduced compound, hydrogen itself is a reduced compound molecule, and therefore they can supply the electrons. Okay, they are electron donors, and any oxidized molecule including oxygen itself, okay, these are going to serve as the electron acceptors. Was that clear to you? Then we go to the next slide, that is hydrogen as the electron donor. Okay, as I said earlier, hydrogen itself can serve as an electron donor. Okay, because it has hydrogen is a diatomic molecule, so it has 2 electrons and 2 protons. Okay, and the aerobic organisms which can utilize hydrogen as the electron donor can actually use oxygen as the electron acceptor. Okay, so we have this hydrogen oxygen as the pair. Okay, electron donor electron acceptor pair. And if it is an anaerobic organism, then an anaerobic organism can also oxidize hydrogen. It can derive the electrons from hydrogen, but the electron acceptor is not oxygen, and instead of oxygen we can have nitrate, sulfate, ferric ion, and many other compounds which are already oxidized molecules. Okay, so because we have already seen this in anaerobic respiration, I'm not going to again spend any time on that. Yes, this is the equation for the oxidation of hydrogen, a very simple equation which anybody can easily remember. Okay, diatomic molecule H2 plus half O2 will give H2O, and the standard free energy change associated with the reaction is minus 273 kilojoules. Okay, so minus indicates that energy is released in the process, and 273 indicates that this amount of energy is enough for us to get few ATP molecules. Okay, so when I say actually few ATP molecules, it actually means few moles of ATP. Okay, so if we talk in terms of molar values, all hydrogen and oxygen and water here, so if we consider the molar concentrations of this, then a few moles of ATP can be generated in this process. Okay, now this particular activity of oxidation of hydrogen is carried out by an enzyme which is called hydrogenase enzyme. Okay, hydrogenase can split the H2 molecule to yield the protons and electrons. Okay, there are 2 types of hydrogenases. We have, I think I have already mentioned the 2 types of hydrogenases. One is called as the periplasmic hydrogenase, and the other is called as the cytoplasmic hydrogenase. Okay, so periplasmic hydrogenase is the one which is membrane bound enzyme. And when I say it is a membrane bound enzyme, it is essentially going to be useful for the electron transport chain in respiration. Okay, so remember that this particular reaction is overall exergonic reaction. We get energy out of it. Okay, and that energy will support the synthesis of ATP. Gajanan wants to be admitted. I'll just admit him. Okay. And then this also is a very important line I have written here. Electrons from hydrogen are transferred to a quinone. Okay. From the quinone, they go to a series of cytochromes. Okay. And from the series of cytochromes, the electrons go to oxygen. Okay. So this is like we have already seen in the case of photosynthesis and respiration, that there is a chain of electron carriers, and the electrons and the protons are subsequently transferred to different components in the chain. Finally, the electrons go to the terminal electron acceptor. Okay. During this particular chain of transfers, at certain points of time, there are what are called as the proton pumps, and the proton pumps are going to release the protons to the outside of the membrane. Okay. And that will generate ATP. So similar kind of mechanism is also seen in these chemolithotrophic organisms. The only thing that we are going to remember here is that the electron donor is the hydrogen molecule, and electron acceptor could be oxygen or it could be anything else. And in between, we have different components of the electron transport. For example, we have quinone, and we also have different cytochromes. Is it okay?
Yes.
Okay. So coming to the hydrogenases, I have told you that there are two types of hydrogenases. One is called as the membrane-bound hydrogenase, and this is the one which participates in the energetics of the electron flow, and that is coupled to ATP synthesis. Okay, there is another enzyme called cytoplasmic hydrogenase, and this particular enzyme is responsible for carrying hydrogen to the inside of the cell. Okay, so hydrogen goes in the cell, and then when the hydrogen goes in the cell, then this hydrogen is used by cytoplasmic hydrogenase to reduce NAD. Okay, so NAD plus is converted to NADH plus H plus. Okay, NAD plus NAD plus becomes NADH plus H plus, right? And this particular reaction is done directly by the cytoplasmic hydrogenase, right? So in other words, what happens is the electrons from hydrogen are directly transferred to NAD plus by this particular enzyme, cytoplasmic hydrogenase, right? And for this particular reaction, the reduction potential of hydrogen is minus 0.42. Okay, and it is therefore, if you can remember that graph once again, because the reduction potential is on the negative side, this particular molecule of hydrogen can easily transfer the electrons to NAD plus. Okay, and because the reduction potential of NAD plus is at a higher level, positive side, okay, it can take the electron from the hydrogen molecule. Okay, so again, from the thermodynamic point of view, this particular reaction is favorable. Okay, and that is why it can happen very easily, and therefore for this the reverse electron flow is as such not necessary. Okay, but again remember that instead of hydrogen, if there was any other molecule whose reduction potential was more positive, okay, then the reverse electron flow would be necessary for transfer of the electrons. Okay, so I think I have been repeating this again and again just for you to understand this and know that this is a very, very important point for the entire your microbial physiology syllabus. Okay, 3 units are based on the electron transport chain, right, out of 5 units, and therefore you should give importance to this particular concept. Okay. Then I think these things I have already discussed with you. I'll skip to the next slide. Okay, then we go to another important donor of electrons, which is called as sulfur compounds. Okay, different sulfur compounds can serve as the electron donors. Okay, and all the organisms which can use the sulfur compounds for the electron source, okay, they are called as the sulfur oxidizing bacteria or the sulfur oxidizers. Now, just remember that in the last unit in anaerobic respiration, we were discussing about sulfate reducing bacteria. Do you remember that? Sulfate reducing bacteria. And there we have seen that the sulfur, yes, we have seen that the sulfur compounds actually were serving the role of the terminal electron acceptor. Okay, and now here in contrast, the sulfur compounds are serving the role as electron donors. Okay, so that is a very, very interesting thing. And in fact, I am very proud to tell you that in microbiology, we are learning so many interesting things. There are different ways the organisms actually live. Okay, we respire oxygen, isn't it? We take up oxygen for respiration. But there are organisms which can respire sulfate. There are organisms which can respire nitrate, isn't it? Okay, so that is to say sulfate and nitrate serve as the electron acceptors. Okay, but here the sulfur compounds are actually being used as the electron donors, right? And all these organisms which can do that, they are called as the sulfur oxidizers or sulfur oxidizing bacteria. So here are some of the names which I have written: Acidithiobacillus. Yesterday, I think I have told you that the genus Thiobacillus is now changed. Okay, the name of the genus is now Acidithiobacillus, because these organisms can survive in acidic environments. That is a very, very characteristic feature of these organisms, right? So we have other genera like Thiomicrospora, Sulfolobus, Begiatoa, Acromachium, Micromonas, and so on. Okay, so you can just go through the list. Okay, these are all sulfur oxidizing bacteria. Then coming to this important organism, Acidithiobacillus. Okay, ACID stands for the fact that these organisms can, they are extremophiles. Okay, they can survive in highly acidic conditions. The pH may be 3, or the pH may be even less than 3. Even then, these organisms can survive in the environment. In fact, these organisms are producing the acid themselves. Okay, in a certain environment where they are carrying out their own respiration and metabolic activities, these organisms can actually produce sulfuric acid, and therefore they can remain in that sulfuric acid without any problem. So therefore this word is written here, acidy. Thio stands for the fact that these organisms can oxidize sulfur compounds. Okay, thio stands for sulfur. Okay, sulfur compounds are oxidized, and because it is a bacillus, okay, it is a rod-shaped organism, aerobic organism, it is called as bacillus. Okay, so Acidithiobacillus is a motile rod-shaped organism. It is quite ubiquitous in nature. Okay, it may occur in freshwater environment as well as marine environment, but usually it is present in acid contaminated soils. Okay, especially where there are ore deposits. Okay, mineral deposits are there. Okay, because the organism, in addition to sulfur compounds, these organisms can also oxidize iron compounds. Okay, they can also oxidize certain other metals. Okay, and therefore they are prone to be found in certain habitats which are rich in metals. Okay, and that is why I think you have already studied that these organisms are also used for the leaching of metals. Okay, a process which we call as bioleaching. Is it right? Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So these organisms are present in such environments, and that can be indicated by the smell of H2S in the sediments. Okay, then there is brownish red coloration of the precipitates which are formed because of the oxidation of iron. Okay, and there could be also high content of acid in such environments. Okay, so all these are the things which help us to identify a particular site where these organisms can be present. Okay, if at all we want to isolate the organisms, then we can isolate them from such environments. Okay, then most of these organisms can grow autotrophically. What is the meaning of autotrophic growth? Aishwarya had already told us at the beginning of the lecture that these are the organisms which use CO2 as the only source of carbon. Okay, they don't require any other source of carbon other than CO2. But some of the organisms, yes, they can also grow organotrophically. That is, they can use other organic compounds as a source of carbon. Okay, and some organisms can also oxidize sulfur compounds. Okay, and not only that, of course, these organisms are oxidizing sulfur in the presence of oxygen, but there are organisms which can carry out the oxidation of sulfur in the absence of oxygen. Okay, that is to say they can reduce the nitrates and nitrite compounds also. Okay, so in a way we can say that they are anaerobic organisms, right? then many organisms can also oxidize ferrous ion. In addition to sulfur compounds, they can also oxidize iron compounds, and ferrous ion is the most important such compound which can produce which can generate electrons for these organisms as the energy source, right? Then okay, if at all we are interested in growing the organisms in the laboratory, that we can make certain media. Okay, do you know any name of medium which is used for growing Acinetobacillus?
Sir, DHA,
What is that?
dihydroxyacetone